Condoms. Ah, the trusty rubber protector. A staple in the toolkit of adults everywhere in the latter half of the 20th and early 21st century. It's a game changer, aiding in family planning, acting as a barrier against sexually transmitted diseases, and, on occasion, doubling up as an impromptu party balloon. Yet, can you believe that the unassuming condom once teetered on the edge of becoming a weapon wielded by the CIA during the Cold War? Chances are this little tidbit didn't grace her knowledge until now. Let's delve into how the US hatched a scheme involving condoms to confound their Soviet adversaries and discover why this plan veered more toward making amorous connections than sparking conflicts. This is the story of how condoms were almost used as a weapon in the Cold War. Between 1947 and 1989, the world witnessed the grand theater of the Cold War, a spectacular showdown between the giants, the USA and the USSR. A saga of ideology, a battle between communism and democracy. It unraveled into the longest standoff history had ever seen. In some peculiar way, it evolved into a sort of masculine duel, a contest of prowess that, fear not, will soon reveal its relevance, all while dangling the peril of nuclear annihilation over our collective heads for more than 40 years. After the end of World War II, Russia maintained its grip on East Germany, while the US and its allies staked their claim in the Western territories. Although they begrudgingly joined forces to vanquish the Nazi menace, as peacetime unfolded, the differences between the now biggest global powers became more and more obvious, and a battle of nerves erupted. Behold a tale of two superpowers, each armed to the teeth with nuclear might. Yet, having witnessed the aftermath of the bombs dropped on Japan at the end of World War II, there was a hesitance from both parties to unleash such devastating weapons once more. Still, the shadow of these earth-shattering weapons, capable of reducing a nation to ashes in the blink of an eye, loomed ominously, creating a stalemate between the global forces. In those days, the rift between the Soviets and the US and its allies grew so wide that it seemed as though the world teetered on the precipice of all-out nuclear war. A hair-trigger situation where the fate of humanity hung by a thread. And yet, by some miracle, no one dared to pull that fateful trigger in those darkest hours. The pinnacle of this nerve-wracking era was without a doubt the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. It was a time when the Russians stealthily installed missiles across the expanse of Cuba, tantalizingly close to the heart of the United States. This marked the closest the world ever came to witnessing an eruption of direct warfare between the US and Russia, until an agreement was ultimately struck, leading to the withdrawal of the missiles and a gradual deflation of tensions. Amid these fleeting eruptions of intense animosity, the true battleground of the Cold War was veiled in secrecy. It was a realm of covert operations, a world steeped in espionage, a dance of shadows and whispers. The CIA emerged as the United States' paramount weapon against the Soviet Union, and conversely, the KGB stood tall as their adversaries' answer. Their endeavors spanned from clandestine missions unearthing Russian operatives within American borders to daring forays into enemy territories, all aimed at destabilizing the Soviet Union through any means necessary. Born in the wake of World War II in 1947, the CIA was the final piece of the puzzle for the US, the ultimate establishment of its own civilian intelligence branch. This unifying force amalgamated intelligence efforts from pre-existing agencies, including the FBI, tidying up a somewhat chaotic landscape, an organizational leap that other major powers had already undertaken during wartime. So, why did the CIA entertain the notion of employing condoms in their covert battle against the Soviet Union? The answer is as straightforward as one might assume. It wasn't a ploy to meddle with pregnancies in Russia. No arcane conspiracy at play. It was, in fact, all about the power of propaganda. In the heart of this narrative stands Frank Wisner, a linchpin in the unfolding drama. A founding figure of the CIA, Wisner's early exploits were marked by a noble mission to extend aid and solace to those displaced and ravaged by the ravages of World War II. Witnessing the brutal Soviet incursion into Romania post-war, he couldn't help but ponder on the potential of psychological warfare in the inevitable battle against the Russians that would follow. As the 1950s dawned and the CIA delved deeper into this realm, it was Wisner who spearheaded the conception and execution of strategies employing propaganda and psychological maneuvers against the USSR. This led to the establishment of a fresh CIA arm, the Office of Policy Coordination, under Wisner's command. This new division took on the weighty responsibility of crafting unorthodox methods of warfare, pushing boundaries and thinking outside the box as the Cold War surged forward through the 1950s. The Office of Policy Coordination wasted no time after its inception in 1948. Its inaugural triumph came in the form of a strategic maneuver against the Italian Communist Party, a political force with Soviet backing, during a pivotal general election. The success of this operation demonstrated that covert activities and intelligence gathering could yield substantial outcomes in times of peace, solidifying Italy's allegiance to the pro-American faction in Europe, rather than veering towards Soviet influence. One notable advantage of employing such tactics was the ease with which the US government would disavow any involvement, maintaining a veil of deniability. All operations remained discreetly off the official records. But how did we get from this subterfuge to a plan for the unconventional use of condoms as a weapon? As the legend goes, Wisner and his clandestine Office of Policy Coordination concocted a scheme in the 1950s, a plan both audacious and peculiar. Their mission to covertly parachute US-branded toiletry packs into the heart of Soviet territories. The primary objective was to unveil to citizens and military operatives the array of modern healthcare products available in the West, where democracy reigns supreme over communism. The ambition was to sow seeds of disruption, prompting the populace to question why such essentials were beyond their reach. Perhaps amid this contemplation, the notion of democracy might unfurl as a beacon of promise, leading to unrest, even revolution. Picture yourself a modest citizen in Russia, with the communist yoke bearing down on you. Absent any exposure to alternatives, you might believe that this regime was the best course. Reports from those under communist rule didn't paint a rosy picture, with swaths grappling with poverty. Yet, Soviet propaganda portrayed life in the US and the West as far bleaker. Now, envision a package crash-landing in your backyard. Unveiling it, you're met with an abundance of healthcare provisions, an unimaginable bounty in your land, all stamped with the emblem of the US flag. Doubt might creep in. Were those posters plastered around town depicting the West's hardships really the whole truth? In a surreal twist, whispers surrounding this endeavor also tell of condoms nestled in these care packages. Not just any condoms, mind you. These were of the extra-large variety. There was a cunning twist, however. Their packaging bore labels indicating they were a small or medium size. Can you fathom the bewilderment of anyone who dared to unwrap or employ one? Picture our hypothetical scenario. You pull out a condom, labeled as standard or even small, only to find it colossal. Instantly, you'd begin to ponder whether the average male anatomy in the US surpassed that of your homeland. Was this, too, an offshoot of communism's influence? Moreover, few things deflate male pride more swiftly than discovering that those deemed adversaries, even in a restrained conflict like the Cold War, possessed greater endowment. Revisiting the Cold War, it becomes evident that it was little more than a testosterone-fueled standoff. Male leaders on both fronts engaged in a relentless display of power, each vying to assert dominance. The concept that could potentially chip away at the enemy's sense of significance and masculinity held promise, perhaps enough to tip the scales in favor of the US. It was an audacious notion, but it bore the potential for success. It's an outlandish notion, isn't it? One that could easily find a home in a Hollywood blockbuster. But the burning question remains, did any of this actually transpire? How much of this is true? This narrative has evolved into an internet legend in recent years, blurring the line between hearsay and actual events. What we can confirm is that the plan did exist, supported by records and testimonies. Wisner was known for his willingness to propose audacious ideas, and in the nascent days of modern espionage, he stood at the forefront of innovative thinking and strategies. Following his early success with the Italian elections in 1948, Wisner garnered the trust and support needed for such ventures. Given the satirical nature of the plan, it's not hard to imagine why US officials, keen on outwitting and humiliating their Soviet counterparts, might have endorsed it. Interestingly, Frank Wisner wasn't the originator of this idea, according to alternate accounts. It's said that during World War II, Winston Churchill himself contemplated a similar scheme, more as a jest aimed at either the enemy or even his own allies, including the US. Condoms were frequently repurposed by soldiers in the field to shield their rifles from moisture, and it's believed Churchill may have taken a similar approach, distributing large condoms labeled as small or medium to deceive any observers into thinking British men were exceptionally well endowed. Perhaps this is where Wisner first encountered the concept, later realizing its potential usefulness in his efforts to counteract the USSR. What remains uncertain is how far his plan progressed, and whether any packages were ever dispatched onto Russian soil during the Cold War. Official records from both sides of the conflict make no mention of such eccentric tactics. However, it's important to remember that official records often offer only a partial account of a story. Regardless, the mere existence of the notion that condoms, of all things, could serve as psychological weapons underscores the level of desperation that permeated both sides during the Cold War. Thanks for watching. Let me know in the comment section below your favorite fact about the Cold War. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. Remember to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our future videos. And I'll see you in the next one.